MCS 309. Commissioners need both head and heart. And we're doing this in a slightly different format than usual. The class itself has a lot of questions that you go through as a class and discuss. And so we decided to kind of do this in a panel discussion type of situation. So we have 4 people that are going to kind of be our panelists and answer some of these questions for you. One of my staff, Kenny Palmer, is going to be the moderator and run this. So at this point, I am going to turn the time over to Kenny, and he will introduce the others and we'll go forward from there.
I'm glad to have the opportunity to be part of this panel and for my role in it. Just as a quick introductions, I've been a commissioner for over 10 years and been able to help and inspire leaders to change for the better the lives of Scouts. As a unit commissioner, district commissioner, and assistant council commissioner, and served in several other roles in the Scouting organization. I'm happy to be a part of this panel to talk about the important topics of having the knowledge of programs that help Scouts learn skills and develop character traits that will serve them for the rest of their lives, and to have the heart to work with the leaders to meet them where they are and help them with what they need in the moment to meet the mission and ideals of Scouting. The outline to this course said it this way: as commissioners, we use a healthy combination of head and heart when working with units we serve. The heart is compassion and lending a shoulder, and importantly, understanding why a unit would be facing a particular challenge. The head comes in learning why of a challenge, both heart and head, but maybe more heart apply when a unit commissioner supports the unit by participating in a recruiting event. We need to be flexible and aware of the fact that different approaches work better in different situations. Leading with our head is about competence, skill, and knowledge in Scouting. Heart leaders are great at making people feel special, giving them a sense of purpose and making them feel appreciated. Do you usually lead with your head or your heart? Commissioners who are able to blend the 2 styles are far and away the most effective. They can help units with goal setting and building teams while cultivating an environment where youth can thrive. So on our panel today, our heart and head panel, we have Richard Evans, who has served in Scouting for many years and in many councils. In this council and others in Utah, around the county, in Europe. He is an accomplished educator, a commissioner college instructor. Welcome, Richard. We have Lee Hansen, who has served as a unit commissioner in Commissioner College for many years and is currently the Dean of Doctoral Programs and an instructor. Welcome to our panel, Lee. We have Benjamin Bybee, a very successful district commissioner, a teacher and instructor in Commissioner College. We are happy to welcome him to our panel today. We have Maddie Mayfield. She's a member of the National Commissioner Development Group and serves on both the College of Commissioner Science, Curriculum and Review Team, and the Roundtable Group. Maddie brings her knowledge and experience from the crossroads of the West Council. Maddie, thank you for being here today. I'd like to start with Maddie. I have a question for you. How would you counsel a unit commissioner about the importance of understanding who is sponsoring the unit?
The unit sponsor and the unit have a very special relationship. So your chartered organization, your unit sponsor, they have the same interests and values as the BSA, and they're often a community group or a place of worship or a school that provides meeting place and encouragement and leadership to the unit. So when encouraging a unit commissioner about the importance of that sponsor, they need to know that the relationship between the unit and the sponsor is critical, it's important, and it's valued, and that working together, they can create a strong and lasting Scout unit.
What are the issues to consider when working with those who are based in a rural area versus an urban area?
Sure. So units that are based in rural areas are very different from urban areas. They have different challenges. And the biggest one, I think, is distance. You have for example, if you have a unit here in Utah, which is in Delta, and you're bringing in scouts from outlying areas, that can be a lot of driving. But the value of meeting in person, where you forge relationships and you're being together and you're doing hands-on activities, is really critical. And using Zoom and doing those meetings virtually can provide a challenge. So rural areas have these geographic challenges, and urban areas can have different challenges, such as socioeconomic challenges and different schools that scouts will attend. So all of these things need to be addressed when forming a unit, that feeling of inclusion in a unit, so that scouts can feel like one unit, one patrol, one troop, or one pack will help bring those scouts together.
Sometimes they're not always completely mutually exclusive as well.
No. Distance is probably a small problem when you're talking about all the differences in diversity and working on inclusion in a unit.
And sometimes I think that they have different things pulling for their time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, for example, if you're in a farming community, many times the scouts have things they have to do at home. You know, they're just in some other places. You may be dealing with, well, just there's a lot of different options, a lot of different things that pull them apart. What are some ways to help when you identify a problem with a unit?
So one of the first things to do is active listening. If there's a problem in a unit, you want to hear all the different points of view. You want to hear from all of the different leaders. So as a unit commissioner, or whether you're a roundtable commissioner or a district commissioner, get in there and listen to all of those problems is the first way to help, is to try to help to solve issues and problems. So listening actively and validating those things that they're saying will help them feel like they're understood and listened to. And then kind of going back and bringing them together and saying, these are all of the issues, and this is how we can work together based on all of your different points of view to solve the problem. So the big answer is to listen first.
I agree with that totally. I think sometimes you may not have a total answer. You may have to give some guidance on how to work through an answer. And maybe that's even the best, is that we help them find the answer rather than say, here is what you must do.
Right. Sometimes just voicing those issues lets other people know that there are issues and what specifically people are feeling, and so that they can work them out themselves.
And it can be a process.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and your effort.
Yeah, a pleasure to be here.
Richard, my first question for you is, how does the experiences of a unit as a whole and individually affect how commissioners approach a unit they are working with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it is something that a commissioner has to keep in mind. Another thing that they have to keep in mind is that a Scouts BSA organization is quite different from nearly any other kind of organization in our entire culture. It is youth-led, mentor-guided, and committee-managed. Each part has its own roles, but they all have the same ultimate goal, and that's good scouting. Oftentimes, a unit will be unaware of these roles, mostly because they're not really that experienced. This is not necessarily deliberate. It is most often not understanding the best way to have a unit that will last without causing excessive strain on its members. One unit that I was a unit commissioner for had this problem. They really didn't understand the management role of the committee. Because of this, far too much of the management ended up as the responsibility of the scoutmaster. It only took a few visits to see the unit with the unit to see the strain on the unit. The scoutmaster was doing too much, the program was suffering, and retention of the scouts was falling. At the same time, the committee chair was doing little and was not even aware that she should be doing something. As a unit commissioner, I was able to discuss this with both the scoutmaster and the committee chair. They knew there were issues with the unit. They simply didn't know how specifically or know what specifically those issues were. Although I worked with both, my emphasis was with the committee. With only a small amount of guidance and direction, the chair and her committee soon began to relieve the scoutmaster of nearly all of the administration of the unit. Program improved, retention and recruitment increased, and within a year, the unit was strong, well administered, and having fun. Good scouting was achieved.
Excellent, thank you. I think that what you said is really important. One thing I want to just emphasize is within a year. It didn't turn over in a week. It didn't turn over from one conversation. It was a process that took some time. Another question for you. Some scout units have different backgrounds and approach the world from different segments of society. How would you counsel a unit commissioner to distinguish between wrong and different?
You know, the most important thing a unit commissioner needs to do is to always remember the Scout BSA mission, to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Law. This is good scouting and must be on the forefront of a unit commissioner's mind at all times. Scouting is not an outdoor program. Scouting is not a social activity, nor scouting in the entertainment industry. But scouting incorporates all these things and others as tools to achieve its goals and missions. Scouts camp, work together as a group, and have fun with the goal of instilling the valued and valuable ideas of the Scout Oath and Law. Different units may emphasize different tools in different ways. So long as good scouting is being achieved, different is just fine. On the other hand, if good scouting is not being achieved, then the unit is straight off the road and is likely doing something wrong. And that's kind of the difference between different and wrong.
Thank you. How should commissioners support different approaches if they're not against BSA policy?
You need to keep an open mind. Many unit commissioners had great experiences as scouts and scouters. We can tend to think that the way we did things was the best way. Other ways may seem wrong. Let me give you an example of one that I experienced as a scout. My troop loved to look sharp. We took an enormous pride in being in uniform, patrol flags waving, and singing together. At scout camp during flag ceremony, we would show up together, formed up by patrol, feeling and looking great. The adults of other units took great umbrage at this. They actually called a meeting with the camp director and complained that our scoutmaster was making our troop into a military unit. What they didn't understand was that our scoutmaster had little to do with any of this. We scouts behaved like this because we loved it and took pride in ourselves. We scouts helped each other to achieve this goal. We weren't trying to be military. We just liked looking good. Keeping in mind that after flag ceremony, we all jumped into t-shirts and tennis shoes and went off to classes and activities. The other scouters could not see past their own preconception of a military appearance versus just taking pride in being sharp for a flag ceremony. I really didn't hear much more about this after the meeting was called. My guess is that the other scouters really didn't believe that this was really scout driven. They just couldn't be open-minded enough to see that a different approach was not a wrong approach.
Thank you. Benjamin, your first question. How would you counsel a unit commissioner to know if the help they are offering is helpful to the unit?
Well, I think one of the biggest things with a commissioner is they need to understand what the unit's needs are. They need to understand how they are serving those units, and like some of the things that have already been mentioned, actively listening and validating what people are hearing. But I think another important thing is that you're there for them. You say what you're going, you do what you're going to do, and say, if you say something, be there for them, be a support to help them. So as you're training those unit commissioners, it's important that they understand what the vision is of where you're going, to help them to know where the training is that they need, stuff like that.
How would you determine a unique approach to working with each unit?
So the approach with the unit, it really depends on the needs of the unit. Some units, they're just gung-ho. You know those ones. They're the ones that are active in everything. They're available at roundtable. They're available during their meetings. But there are some units that you don't see at roundtable. They don't communicate you via email or with you via email. They don't really participate in the big things. So personal phone calls, reaching out to them, and helping to know that you're there for them really does help.
You know, I think sometimes as commissioners, we find groups that we really enjoy working with, and we have a tendency to spend more time with them. And, you know, that's not all bad. But on the other hand, maybe the ones that aren't showing up, maybe the ones that are struggling, or maybe the ones that are most difficult are the ones that really need most of our time.
Right. And I think another important aspect is that we have to love the people that we serve. And we need to let them know that we love them, not in the ooey gooey kind of love, like I tell my students since I'm a teacher, but the love of like, hey, I'm here to help support you in anything that you need. And as you do that, hearts change, and people are able to feel the emotion behind what we're doing to help the youth. And I think that is something that is oftentimes overlooked. We have to understand that emotion, and we have to understand that we're here to help support the youth and the leaders, especially as commissioners.
Thank you. Lee, as a unit commissioner, what is the importance in knowing the knowledge and background of the leader they are working with?
Okay. I'm going to preface my comments by saying that you need to make friends, and these need to be lifelong friendships with the unit leaders, because unit commissioners have 5 responsibilities, and none of them can be done unless you're close friends with the unit leaders. Commissioners, and this is something I picked up at Philmont from the national commissioner, but unit commissioners, their first responsibility is to actually visit the unit and know what's going on in the unit. The second one is to make sure that the unit is going to recharter on time. The third one is to help the unit recruit both leadership and youth. And the fourth one is to promote journey to excellence, which If you get units to actually use the Journey to Excellence during the monthly committee meetings, it really helps in terms of getting a good program. And the last one is to report back on commissioner tools so that roundtable commissioners, district commissioners have the information they need to do things in roundtable that can actually help the units. So let's take each one of those visiting units. If it's a new unit, the actual responsibility of the unit commissioner is to visit or make contact once a week for 3 years. That's a big commitment. And it also means that if you're friends with the leaders, those visits will be useful. You need to know who's the key three and what kind of people are they? What are their skills? What's their background? Who's on the committee? And again, what kind of backgrounds you have? What kind of responsibilities do they have outside of scouting? Find out how knowledgeable and experienced the leaders are. If it's troop, make sure they know about program features and the importance of the youth-led program. If it's a Cub Pack, make sure they know how to find materials for activities or ideas. Give them copies of current JTE, help them plan a calendar. When it comes time for recharter, you need to know, are all the leaders trained? Does everybody have youth protection training? Reminders, and sometimes it takes actually help. The leaders sit down and say, okay, let's find out what's in this training module. Recruiting, what positions in leadership need to be filled? Do any leaders need to be moved to a different position that might better suit their skills and their time available? You need to know if any leaders are getting burned out. In terms of recruiting, just recently, we have a girls' troop, and we had 5 girls in it, the minimum, but 2 of them have moved away. The other 3 girls and their scoutmasters have essentially followed all of the sort of instructions from the district and council about how to recruit, but no success. And so sometimes as a commissioner, you simply have to step in and start giving ideas that are outside the box. So I told them, look, let's, and I'm talking about the girls, plan a super activity of some kind. And whether that was river running or a camp out or something else. And since I knew that they did not have the resources, I said, look, whatever you plan, I will pay for it, but you have to bring guests with you who, you know, is a young woman that might join the troop. I recognize that I might be placing myself in a position to having to fund a trip to Catalina Island or to Sea Base or something. But I trusted them that they would at least be reasonable about it. And they were. So they have planned a special activity. Each of them has identified 3 other girls that they're going to invite. And we'll see how that works over the next week or 2. But I expect we will at least have enough girls so we will be able to recharter the unit. Journey to Excellence. I mentioned already that if you can get your committee and your leadership to use that monthly committee meetings and look at that carefully and ask themselves, what do we need to be doing that we haven't done, are there service opportunities we need to be taking advantage of? Are there, how are we doing on advancement? How are we doing on various things? The JT lists those things in a very accessible format. But in order to make that useful, as a unit commissioner, you need to know the scouts. Do they have an annual activity? And are they using that calendar? Are they having fun at their activities? What ranks are represented? We have an interesting troop right now. We have several different ethnicities represented. We have all the way from scout rank to close to eagle rank, and ages from 11 to 17. So it's that can be an advantage if we use it right. But that raises the questions, are the activities that are being done appropriate for the scouts? Do we have something that appeals to everybody, from 11-year-olds to 17-year-olds? The other responsibility the unit commissioner has is to make certain that the guide to safe scouting is available to all the leaders and is being followed. And that again requires an intimate knowledge essentially of what their plans and activities are. So anyway, the bottom line of that is, if you have made good friends with all of the leaders in the unit, then that job can become very pleasant and very easily done.
Thank you, Lee, for your insight. It's very, very informative. I appreciate you being here to help us out and help with the discussion. We have a few minutes left, and I would like to do something. Let me just put it this way. Sometimes knowing how to link a unit to resources does the trick if there's some issues going on. The heart to care about the success of a unit, its leaders, its parents, and its scouts makes the job easier to do, and the unit commissioner more successful in serving their units. As a discussion among this group, so what are some resources that we can send people to help them with that part of it?
Well, I was just thinking, if people don't know that training is all online, they can get a lot of information about how to do their job is through the online training, and then find somebody to ask questions to if they didn't quite understand it. But because the training is broken up into short little modules, it's very easy to search and find just the right section that you need for the particular problem that you're having.
Thank you. That's very good.
Well, hey, Kenny, I'd like to add too, if maybe you're trying to help a scoutmaster, but you don't know their role because you haven't been one, or it's been years since you've been one, you can go take their training online as well. There's nothing that says you only have to stay in your lane. You can take all the training and know how to do all the positions, or at least have seen the training and say, hey, I think maybe we need to go back and review first new scoutmaster, first 30 days, how the patrol method works, to kind of refresh that in their mind. Even as a seasoned scoutmaster, I'm still going back to that content and saying, wait, I'm doing it wrong. I got to change what I'm doing in my troop. Or as Richard said earlier, it's, scout run, leader supported or mentored, and committee managed. That concept is just kind of not understood sometimes. And maybe you need to go back and kind of review the basics with them. And maybe you need to have the key three sit there and look at the committee training, the scoutmaster training, and maybe something at the youth level, and have them see how all three of those parts need to work together and how each person has their importance, and maybe they'll click. Again, the training is open for everybody. It's not locked down to just your role.
Excellent. I love that. another thought that I had is, hey, I was just looking at this training and I thought it was great. Let's have dinner some night and we can watch it together and go, maybe you can ask some questions. We can make sure everything clicks, and a great way to develop the relationship a little bit better and to get the training in so that they understand exactly what they should be doing. Great, thank you.
I was thinking about that question about resources and units, and I think a lot of times we as the commissioners need to understand where we can find those resources first. And we have like has been said before, the online trainings, but we also have our district executives that we can go to get extra help. And if the district executive doesn't know, then they will find out from the council. And then we can get the answers that we need to then take back to those units. So I think the very important part is we need to know ourselves what those resources are, and then try and make it easy for the units to get those resources, whether that be putting it on a Facebook page, putting it in a newsletter, doing an email blast, whatever it is, we need to make sure that we are communicating those things that we're learning.
Alvin?
Yes, Ken. The one resource I think we all use is the Philmont Training Center or the Summit Training Center. And there's a lot of different things for us to do to get some information, even as scouters. And we've got a whole week's worth of commissioner events coming up in June, in the first week of June.
Wonderful, thank you. Richard?
One thing I was going to mention, and this is something I take very seriously because it certainly applies to me, is we as commissioners, we also have to have an accurate self-perception. I know absolutely nothing about the Cub Scout program. I have never worked in it, really don't even understand it. In addition, most of my time as a scouter has been as an assistant scoutmaster, venture advisor, and commissioner. I have never once worked on a committee. So I don't necessarily know those kinds of things. And we need to be aware of what we don't know as well as what we do know. And that's where it becomes so important that, yes, we can answer certain kinds of questions, help, listen, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But sometimes we just don't know. And that's okay. But we should know and need to know where you can get the information and get them linked up. And one of the other resources and that really is valuable is oftentimes the district commissioner will have people on his or her staff that have held those kinds of positions, and they can help out. It's just a matter of getting the right connection and also knowing that you don't necessarily know the answer yourself. It's okay to be ignorant.
Yep, you don't have to know it all, do you? But it's really nice to have the resources like we've been talking about. So
thanks, Richard. I feel better now.